Lee the Appraiser back for another segment of Amazing Appraising. Of Amazing Appraising. Okay, we are going to be talking about some sports memorabilia now. We've been talking about NFTs. We've been talking about cryptocurrency. We've been talking about rare stamps. We've been talking about U.S. currency, vintage currency, Confederate currency. What else? We've been talking about, I guess, rare stamps again. So let's talk about some sports memorabilia. Sports is always on my mind. I've been a big sports fan for all my life. It's really crazy, how I love sports, but I've lost interest a lot in baseball. I used to play trivia with a friend of mine by the name of Paul. I grew up with him on the Upper West Side. We would ask each other questions, initial baseball, trivia, everything. And I loved the sport of baseball. I loved going to the Yankee games with my father. I lived at Columbia University, so I was able to he took me in a taxi to the 120th Street and Lenox Avenue station. We'd be 3 stops at Yankee Stadium. The whole trip would take 20 minutes. I used to go there for double headers. There were only about, when I went as a kid, there were only about like 10 to 12 regular teams that the Yankees would play. That was it. This is going back many years ago. It was Boston Red Sox, Washington Senators, Minnesota Twins. And I remember on each team, the star players. On the Senators, it was the big Frank Howard, the gentle giant. Wow, I remember him hitting the ball so hard once that the second baseman dove for it as a line drive. Can you believe that? The second baseman at that time, his name was Horace Clark, and I guess that was about 1968. He dove for the ball. He couldn't get it. And the ball, again, you're talking about the second baseman diving for it. The ball was hit so hard. For those who don't know, Frank Howard was a monster of a man. He was about 6'10" and he weighed 340 pounds. And he hit the ball as hard as anyone. And he hit it again right over Horace Clark's head. Horace Clark dove for it, jumped, couldn't catch it, and the ball kept going and went over the monuments in center field for a home run over center field. That was like the hardest hit ball I've ever seen. I remember that vividly. Crazy, right? They had a guy, Mike Epstein, who played there too a little while. I think it was a little earlier. And then we had the Boston Red Sox. Of course, you had Carl Yastrzemski, Jim Lomberg. The shortstop was Rico Petrocelli. Jim Rice came a little later. You had the Cleveland Indians. I remember we had Ken the Hawk Harrelson was on that team. Sam McDowell was their great pitcher. I remember you would look at the programs of the Yankees and they'd say the teams that is coming in next week. You have the Minnesota Twins coming. That was my favorite hometown team from Minneapolis. You had Harmon Killebrew, Tony Oliva, Rod Carew, Cesar Tovar. I remember them. Dean Chance and Jim Cott, who is now a Yankee broadcaster. Oakland A's, you had Bert Campaneris, who was the shortstop speedster on that team. Sal Bando, I guess. Reggie Jackson, of course. Oakland was a very good team. On California, you had the ex-Met Nolan Ryan. Detroit Tigers came in all the time. You had Al Kaline, Willie Horton, Alan Trammell, Jim Cash, Jim Northrup. Wow, these are all names from the past. Who else? Wow, the Chicago White Sox, I guess. Oveda Pinson was on the Indians as well. All these teams. Oh, Baltimore Orioles, of course. You had Boog Powell, Brooks Robinson, the great Jim Palmer. All these great players were on that team. Yeah, Paul Blair, Don Buford, I remember them well. They played our Mets, right? Anyhow, so ball. So what are we talking about? Sports. So I have a ball here. Let's see if anyone can figure out. I'm going to give all the names here, and let's see if anyone can figure out. Any of the listeners can figure out what do they all have in common. Whitey Ford, Buck Leonard, Jim Palmer, Willie McCovey, Don Drysdale, Duke Snyder, Enos Slaughter, Robin Roberts, Ernie Banks, Lou Brock, Juan Marshall. He was like incredible. He would do a full stretch, like a full split, actually, not stretch, a full split in the air on every pitch he threw. He had one of the most unique deliveries you'll ever see. By a full stretch, meaning he would stretch his leg out all the way in the air over his head when he threw the ball. Crazy, right? Yogi Berra, Rick Farrow, Luke Appling. So, anybody have a guess of all these names? Did I say this here? I said, I'm not sure. Yes, I did. No, I didn't. I did, I guess. Yes. Okay, I said that, right? Duke Snyder, Enos Slaughter, Robin Roberts, Ernie Banks, and Lou Brock. Okay. So we're going to let everybody think about that for a minute. We have a baseball here signed by that. So all these players, what they have in common? A, the person that owned it brought them to various card shows and had them all signed in person, number one. And number two, they are all Hall of Famers. Okay? So I believe. I didn't have the time to check, but I'm 99% sure that's the case. So these are all Hall of Famers, very unusual group. Some of the greatest players ever, and probably some of the greatest alive Hall of Famers in the year, probably about 1985 to 1990 is when he had them signed. Okay, very, very cool. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to give these other names and see if anyone can figure out who all these names have in common. Okay, Ernie Banks. Now I'm looking at this with you guys for the first time, so I believe this is Barry Bonds, Harmon Killebrew, Willie Stargell, Denny McLean, Yogi Berra, Phil Rizzuto, Maury Wills, Bob Gibson, a couple of these I'm having difficulty reading. Let's see here. Dick Allen, which was Richie Allen, for those who don't know. Stan Musial. Okay. Let's see here. So I think that's everybody on this ball. So this is a very clever one. So if I'm not mistaken, this ball, any guesses out there? So if you're going to say they're all members of the Hall of Fame, I don't believe that's the case, because I don't believe it. I could be wrong. I don't think Denny McLean made the Hall of Fame, because I only think he had a couple great seasons. Oh, the ball also has. So I think the answer to this ball is these are all, most of them are Hall of Famers, but that's not it. These are all MVP winners. They won the most valuable player awards in Major League Baseball. That's cool. This was also probably signed about 1985. And anyhow, the balls are in absolutely perfect condition. So if you have any baseballs that are signed by any of these great players, let us know, and we'll be happy to evaluate, appraise, authenticate, and let you know what they're worth, etc.